of the new revelations from Liz Cheney's book.
Can I ask John Heilman about that? What do you make of poor Kevin McCarthy having to go down to an ailing Donald Trump, who he said, I have to go down there, Liz. Trump's not eating. What do you make of those revelations that Donald Trump was in bed, depressed, and not eating? So his Kevin had to go down to with a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Mar-a-Lago? What the hell, Kevin? They're really worried Trump's not eating.
Oh my God.
Nobody ever,
Oh my
John
God.
Heilman.
I mean, I think, the Kentucky Fried Chicken, I think they got on site. He was personally taking down that cache of the Starburst with the orange ones, the green ones were the ones they took out for Trump. I guess you take the candy down there. I mean, look, it's hilarious and stupid. And obviously, McCarthy was looking for a reason to go to Mar-a-Lago. He says some ridiculous thing. Liz Cheney obviously is going to make hay out of the fact that he said it. But the point, obviously, is that it's so ludicrous that beyond the notion that the idea of Trump not eating is inconceivable, the idea that would be a reason to go is ridiculous. But that if it were true, if true, your notion is you're Kevin McCarthy, you've been on the House floor in the hours after January 6th, and you stood up and said, the president is responsible for an insurrection against the American government, trying to a coup, an attempted coup. Kevin McCarthy came out and said it. And a few days later, he's on his way to Mar-a-Lago, and his justification for it is the president's not eating. Now, again, take it at face value. At face value, it's the most. It's like Pinochet. He's feeling a little ill. He's not. He needs the man's dramatically. I think we'll go down and talk to Paul Pot. It's like it's just an absurd thing on face value to say, and it just shows how transparent it was that McCarthy went for the reasons he went, which was he saw the way the winds were blowing. He thought, oh my God, Trump's going to be powerful again. I have to go down there and pay obeisance to him. And of course, that was a huge moment in the trajectory of the Republican Party post January 6th.
And to John's point, Jen, why was he allegedly depressed? Why was Trump allegedly not eating? Because his attempted coup failed. And so they had to go swaddle him and rock him and be at his bedside to get through the fact that he could not overturn the United States government, the results of an election.
And what it reveals about his ridiculous defense to Liz Cheney is that, he knows, as he has known all along, and there were moments where he stuck his head up and said so, he knows that what he's doing is wrong. He knows that what he's doing is dangerous to the democracy.
So another scene that Liz Cheney, we're talking about this new book, it's not out yet. She'll be with us next week, by the way, here in the studio to talk about it. She describes a scene on Capitol Hill before the attack on January 6th. According to CNN, that received an early copy of the book, Cheney writes how she was in the Republican cloakroom where members are encouraged to sign their names on electoral vote objection sheets for each of the states Republicans were contesting. Cheney writes most members knew it was a farce and another public display of fealty to Donald Trump. She continues, among them was Republican Congressman Mark Green of Tennessee. As he moved down the line, signing his name to the pieces of paper, Green said sheepishly to no one in particular, quote, "the things we do for the orange Jesus." Quoting there, Joe, a United States congressman talking about Donald Trump as they sign sheets of paper in an attempt to fraudulently overturn an American presidential election.
Now, and again, they know.
They know.
They know it's nonsense. They all knew it was nonsense. And John Lemire, you wrote the book on this. They knew this was nonsense. The current Speaker of the House knew this was nonsense, but he actually led the attempt to overthrow the United States government. Let me say that again. The current Speaker of the House led the attempt inside the House to overthrow election results of a presidential election, thereby overthrowing American democracy. He led it because, as Liz Cheney said, he was so desperate to be in Trump's circle.
For Orange Jesus.
He drafted the paperwork for the coup, is what the new speaker did. And this is, so it's a useful reminder of just how completely in Donald Trump's sway these Republicans were. They were willing to let him throw this temper tantrum after the election. They were willing to, so they wouldn't have to.
Hooligans act this way. Hooligans. Outlaws. people that are swindlers. And that's exactly what this has regrettably led off into. That the government, or various people within the government, has swindled the
on
American
January
people.
6th, many of whom continue to do so even after the riots. They still went through with their objections and efforts to install fake electors. And really, now very little has changed, in part because of that Kevin McCarthy visit, where he went to Mar-a-Lago, and not just to deliver some McDonald's, apparently, but to apologize. He apologized to Donald Trump for speaking harshly to him on January 6th. And that was the beginning of Trump's rehabilitation within the Republican Party. And we have now seen he is well on his way to being their nominee again.
It was a pivotal moment, as was Lindsey Graham, who said, I'm done, I'm out, I'm finished. We had a good ride together, but I'm done with Donald Trump. And then somebody was mean to him in the airport in Washington, and he flipped on it. There's also, Mike, the human side of this. We've talked about this, Joe and I have talked about this on the air too. As an adult, as a man, how do you look yourself in the mirror? What do you say to your kids when they say, but dad or husband or friend or son, all the evidence says you shouldn't have done these things. This is all a lie. Why are you doing this? What do you say? What do you tell your kids? Well, I had to do it because the big guy was real mad at us.
Archie's.
You know, here in this late November day in 2023, let's consider what we've talked about these last 8 or 9 minutes. One political party, the Republican Party, and I can only imagine the number of people who are watching this program, or the number of people who are out there in the United States of America wondering about the Republicans that we've talked about the party that we're talking about, wondering, who are these people? Who are they? They can't govern. They've proven they can't govern. They've removed one speaker, poor Kevin McCarthy, because he went down to feed the hungry in Florida. They took 3 or 4 weeks to get another speaker, a guy who is ideologically in the middle of the 19th century, not the 21st century. They haven't done one thing to lower the cost of gasoline by 2 or 3 cents. Not one thing to lower the price of a dozen of eggs by a dime or 15 cents. In other words, they haven't done one thing for people that they proselytize, that they just go after with the cheapest of cheap items. A man's son who is an addict, an admitted addict.
Now, Mike invoked something that had a little bit of biblical flavor there, some feeding the hungry, right? Joe, you're the closest thing we have to a pastor on the show.
No, that's bad news.
Yes. It just tells us about the heathens that are in our midst. But I keep thinking about Mike Johnson and his thing when people said, "Oh, who's Mike Johnson?" He said, "Well, if you want to understand me, go look at the Bible. If you can read the Bible, you'll see who I am." And the invocation of Orange Jesus, although perhaps ironic by Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's like I think I think if I'm right, 10 Commandments, the first one, "Thou shalt have no other god before me," right? That's the first commandment, I believe. And the third one is, "You shouldn't take the Lord's name in vain." I just don't get. I think these self-styled the Speaker of the House. If you want to understand me, just read your Bible. Okay, well, there's a pretty basic thing, 10 Commandments. He's like the leader of the cult to Orange Jesus, and this is like. There's so many hypocrisies and idiocies among this group, but there is something so jarring to hear the invocation of, even in a maybe comic way, portraying Trump and then treating him as if he is in fact their Messiah. You gotta kind of ask the question. Someone's got to go up to Mike Johnson at some point and ask him this question, which is kind of like, sir, you said look at the Bible. I've looked. Seems like how do you feel about Orange Jesus at this point? Can we get your comment, please?
Funny because he is their savior. That is how they treat him.
Well, and you can look at quotes. You can look at quotes from so-called evangelical leaders. You can look at quotes from so-called Christian nationalists. They hold him up as an idol. And if you want to, read Jeremiah, about what Jeremiah says about what happens to followers of God when they worship idols. they become worthless, just like the idols themselves. And in this case, David French, who is far closer to being in the pastoral realm than I will ever be. I'm so backslidden, like almost full circle there. David French said, wait a second, read the Bible? Read the Bible and you'll know what the new speaker, but no, he said just the opposite.
Yeah.
And this is the great irony, John. He became speaker in part because he propagated the biggest lie that has ever been propagated in the U.S. government in our lifetime. In our lifetime, he sits on a throne built on lies. In fact, built on the biggest lie that was an attempt to overthrow the government. And it's a lie that he knows is a lie. But he did it anyway. And as Liz Cheney said, why did the speaker lie? The speaker lied because he wanted power. The speaker lied because he said, I have to be in Trump's circle. He lied for power. And as David French so eloquently wrote in the New York Times, when Mike Johnson became speaker, he said, not only is there nothing in the Bible or in the New Testament and the Gospels and the Sermon on the Mount that would justify this, in fact, what this man has done is the antithesis of everything Jesus ever spoke about. Read the Bible? Not even close. Not even close. Maybe, I don't know, John. You know, Jefferson had his own Bible where Jefferson cut out the verses that were inconvenient to him. Maybe these Christian nationalists should do the same and just invent their own Bible, invent their own Gospels, because as David French said, there's nothing that Mike Johnson has done, nothing in his government service, nothing in his lust for power, lust for the speaker's gavel that has anything to do with what Jesus Christ preached about when he was here on earth.
Joe, that was exactly the kind of reaction I was hoping for from you, and I will give you an amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. And he's already rewritten the Bible. All right, John Hellman, thank you very much.
I expected John to respond.
Well, no, he said amen.
How can I top that? What's there to add? What's there to add to that?
There's nothing. I mean,
Well
that
said,
was
Joe. Amen. I said.
And
What do you Catholics
was-
say? What is it? A something and respond or whatever?
Sure.
There you go.
Okay.
I had the call. You had the response. What else do you want from me?
All right.
Okay.
So as Willie, thank you, John Howard.
There you go, callers.
As Willie mentioned, Liz Cheney is going to be our guest next Tuesday on Morning Joe. We'll talk more with her about her book and her experience with this unbelievable situation. And as we go to break, here is Bob Vanderplatz, a top evangelical leader in Iowa, explaining why he is not backing Donald Trump for president, saying voters in his state are done with the former president.
Need to listen to this, please.
Trump deserved to lose my endorsement. Matter of fact, I've never endorsed him, but he proved he was not worthy of the endorsement of me, of the ministry, and by extension, the broader body. And I believe Iowa will rise up. I believe Iowa will send a message on January 15, because I think they're seeing through this as well. This is smoke and mirrors. This is not leadership our country needs. Are you worthy to be followed? Are moms and dads, grandpa and grandmas, are they willing to point to you and say, grow up to be like him or her? And I told people, Steve, in 2019 in Jerusalem, and we knew the 2020 election was coming upon us, and I told them the number one hurdle for Donald Trump is I've never met a dad or a mom or a grandpa or a grandma who've told me they want their son or daughter or grandchild to grow up to be like him. That's a big deal.
If you struggle and struggle,
It's chaotic. But this is what they wanted. They wanted chaos, and the reason why they wanted chaos is because it was going to be a big distraction.
Jen Palmieri are still with us. I'll get to our
And now the American people are starting to see through it, but the distraction is still happening. The inadequacies are still taking place.
Now, talks are now underway to once again extend the pause in fighting between Israel and Hamas. This, as today, is the last full day of the temporary truce. Hamas is expected to release more hostages in the coming hours. Yesterday, 12 people were brought back into Israeli territory, including 2 Thai nationals. In exchange, Israel freed 30 Palestinian prisoners. NBC chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has the very latest.
Intense negotiations are underway to extend what has been this 6-day ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. It is expected to end tonight, and there are expected to be more hostages released, roughly 10 under the terms of this deal that is about to expire.
So sad.
But we are hearing from diplomatic sources, senior diplomatic sources, that both sides are expressing a willingness to have an extension, at least 2 days, perhaps more than that. What Hamas would have to do to gain that extension is it would have to find more hostages, be willing to release more hostages, particularly women and children. That is what has been agreed to so far. Hamas says that it will free all of the women and children that it has. But Hamas doesn't hold all of the women and children hostages in Gaza. There are other militant groups that hold several dozen of them. So Hamas is in the process now of collecting the women and children that were spread out in from its perspective, safe locations in Gaza in order to hand them over. It is still very fluid. It is still very delicate. It could fall apart. But what I'm hearing at this stage is there is some optimism that this deal could be extended potentially for 2 more days. But we will wait for an official announcement. But the negotiations seem to be heading in that direction.
Richard Engel reporting for us from Tel Aviv, and joining us now, former Chief of Staff at the CIA and Department of Defense, Jeremy Bash. He's an NBC News national security analyst and Pentagon reporter for Politico.
You need to listen to this.
Laura Seligman, good to have you both with us this morning.
So Jeremy, what is your? We talked to Admiral Stavridis last hour about the challenges that are going to be facing.
Or the trade-offs, really.
Well, the trade-offs between these scenes of joy and these wonderful reunions that we're seeing versus the cost down the road to the Israeli army. What are your main concerns right now as we're seeing these images on our screen that bring such happiness and joy to all of us? What's your concern, though, about what's quietly going on deep underground in Gaza with Hamas?
Yeah, 2 things, Joe and Mika, that I'm thinking about this morning. First of all, we still have 9 Americans who are being held hostage in Gaza. Let me say that again. We still have 9 Americans who are at this hour being held hostage by Hamas or their other terrorist affiliates.
Can I interrupt and also remind people what a former member of the intel community reminded me this morning? 20 Americans were killed on October the 7th. So we have Americans who've been killed, and we have 9 Americans who are still being held hostage. It's almost like those Americans have been forgotten by a certain segment of American society who's saying that we need to somehow make nice with Hamas.
Absolutely. And just for the benefit of your viewers, here are their first names: Sigai, Itai, Idan, Omer, Hirsch, Keith, Gadi, Judy, and Liat. And if those 9 Americans are being held, their families, many of whom are gathering in Washington today because they're going to be meeting with members of Congress and other folks from the administration and the government, they need our constant attention and our constant focus. It's one of the main missions of Ambassador Burns in the region. It's one of the main missions of Secretary Blinken, who will be in Israel tomorrow, is to focus on getting those 9 American hostages out. One of those hostages, Hirsch Goldberg Poland, you've had his parents here on Morning Joe, Rachel Goldberg and John Poland. And he was grievously wounded. Yes, he's a military-age male, but Hamas has released other people who were grievously wounded. He needs to be released for a humanitarian exception so he can get his wounds treated and he can get his rehabilitation started. So it's absolutely vital that Israel regain intelligence dominance so that they can find, fix, and finish the location of terrorists and find, fix, and release the location of hostages in this next phase of the war. I agree with Admiral Stavridis. The moment of large-scale bombing campaigns from the air and standoff weapons is probably going to recede, and it's probably going to be a much more precision, intelligence-driven counterterrorism mission from here on out.
Jeremy, obviously the United States has a big role to play into how this plays out going forward. You had yesterday the President of the United States saying two things a little bit different from each other. One is that we will not rest, we will not stop working until every hostage held by Hamas has been returned safely. That's one thing. On the other hand, he said Israel has to be careful not giving Hamas what it wants, which means civilian casualties, and then saying, hey, we're the victim in all this, Hamas. So how do you view the president's role here? How much pressure should he be applying to Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Yeah, I think the president has struck exactly the right tone. He has said to the world that there's a moral clarity to this crisis. Israel was the victim. Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization that ultimately must be degraded. And if you care about peace, if you care about a two-state solution, reconciliation between Israelis and Palestinians, you want Hamas defeated, because obviously Hamas would be an enemy of any Palestinian-Israeli peace process. And so I think the president has struck exactly the right tone. Yes, in private, there's going to be advice. There's going to be deconfliction. There's going to be discussion about aid corridors. There's going to be intelligence sharing. There's even going to be weapons sharing. And this is one of the reasons, Willie, why it's so important. I know we're going to turn to it, that Congress passed this aid package for Israel so that Israel can continue to take the fight to Hamas. We've essentially outsourced this terror campaign, this counterterrorism campaign, I should say. We've outsourced this counterterrorism campaign to Israel. We need them to have the intelligence. We need them to have the weapons. We need them to have the benefit of American support.
On that note, Laura, you've been doing...
It's really a sick joke, because there's like 70 different terrorist groups over there that we know of, that every one of them need to be killed. They need to be slaughtered. And until we understand that and identify that, we're only playing this endless game to where the dog is moving, but it's only chasing its tail, moving around and around in circles. In other words, 20 years from now, we're still going to be dealing with the same issues, with the same problems, with basically the same people. This has been going on now for 75 years. And so far, they haven't found a solution to the problem. So obviously, they're basically playing with themselves. I hate to use that kind of terminology, but I mean, whenever you have so many different terrorist groups over there, defining one from the other shouldn't even be an issue. Because if you put them in a sack and shake them up and drop them out, they're all going to come out the same. They're all going to come out the same. And as I have said, you cannot conform the devil. You cannot conform Satan. The best that you can do is defeat him either in a physical confrontation or a spiritual confrontation. You're not going to be able to conform the devil and the devil's people. They're only going to play with you and continue to play with you as long as they can, because basically what they're doing is playing for time. You got to go back to what was said to Jesus whenever the possessed man said, "We know who thou art, how hast thou come to torment us before our time?" And Jesus asked, "Who are they?" And they said, "A legion." And then the man started shaking and started begging Christ not to destroy them, but to be merciful. And Jesus throwed the multiple spirits off into the swine, and the swine run off into the cliff. The word is time. The clock is ticking, and it's ticking in the reverse sector and not going forward. And until people actually understand that and then work upon that, It's only wasted time.
Additional troops, hundreds of troops, and it doesn't actually have the money to pay for that right now. As you said, the government is under a continuing resolution. That's a stopgap spending measure that freezes funding at last year's spending levels. So the fact that these movements weren't planned means that the Pentagon has had to pull that funding from elsewhere in the department. Now, the Pentagon is no stranger, of course, to operating under a continuing resolution. Unfortunately, this does happen almost every year, but now is just a particularly bad time for this to happen, with so much going on, so much on the Pentagon's plate, and it could get worse. If congressional dysfunction, this impasse lasts into April, all of the federal departments, including the Pentagon, are going to face another cut, a 1% across the board funding cut. And so there's going to be even less money for that. I should also say that there's so much happening right now that all these troops are under threat in the Middle East. We just saw on Sunday that there were 2 ballistic missiles that were shot by Houthi rebels close to the USS Mason, a guided missile destroyer that's operating there in the Gulf of Aden. There's been 73 attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria since October 17th. So clearly U.S. troops are putting themselves in harm's way, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be any resolution to this conflict anytime soon.
Laura, that's a great point there about the troops in harm's way. One of the arguments that the White House has tried to make to get this spending done.
In other words, we're the terrorist punching bag. They're whipping post. They're floor mats.
We have sent so much to Ukraine and to a lesser extent to Israel. Give us an update there. Just how low are U.S. supplies? How low is the Pentagon running?
So this is something that people at the Pentagon are grappling with. I think that people say that they have enough weapons in our own coffers. Right now, there are certain levels that the Pentagon will not go below of certain weapons. For instance, the ATACMS that we are sending Ukraine, that's a big one. But I do think that as we see these conflicts extend, we're sending more and more weapons to Ukraine, billions and billions of dollars. We're seeing more and more weapons that the U.S. is sending to Israel. We've transferred many weapons out of our reserve stockpiles, which are all around Europe and in Israel. I think that is going to become even more of a pressing issue, and that is why the president has sent this supplemental to the Hill for $106 billion, about $60 billion to replenish our stocks for Ukraine, about $14 billion to replenish our stocks for Israel, and we can't continue sending these weapons until we have the money to replenish that.
Pentagon reporter for Politico, Laura Seligman, and former chief of staff at the CIA and Department of Defense, Jeremy Bash. Thank you both very much for being on this morning. So we are learning more about the extent to which former Vice President Mike Pence has cooperated with prosecutors in the federal election interference case against Donald Trump. Sources tell ABC News that in interviews with special counsel Jack Smith's team earlier this year, Pence went into great detail about Trump's actions in the aftermath of the 2020 election, leading up to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. ABC News sources say Pence allegedly told prosecutors that within days of the vote, Trump started sharing, quote, un-American legal theories about a stolen election. The sources say Pence told investigators that he repeatedly expressed to Trump that he hadn't seen evidence of widespread voter fraud, but the then president was unmoved. Later, Trump allegedly pushed Pence not to preside over the certification of Electoral College votes on January 6th, according to ABC News sources, something the former vice president briefly considered. Before changing his mind, Pence reportedly wrote in his own personal notes, quote, "Not feeling like I should attend electoral count. Too many questions, too many doubts, too hurtful to my friend. Therefore, I'm not going to participate in certification of the election." Those notes were turned over to Smith's team by the National Archives. NBC News has not independently confirmed ABC's reporting, and a spokesman for Pence declined to comment. Trump is scheduled to go on trial in March, where he has pleaded not guilty to 4 charges, including conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government.
So, Jennifer Mary, we should judge, I think, we should judge Mike Pence where he ended up what he ended up doing, and that is he stood in the gap. I will say that the memo that he wrote to himself about not participating because he didn't want to be hurtful to, quote, my friend, a quote friend who would call for his lynching or say he supported lynching to members of his own staff on January the 6th. It really does underline, does it not, the important role that the former Vice President Dan Quayle played in this entire extraordinary chapter in American politics when Mike Pence called him up and the former Vice President said to the current Indiana Vice President, Mike, you have no choice. You have to certify the votes. I mean, it's extraordinary. History may have turned on that phone call.
This just shows you what humans do in moments of crisis really matters, and that unlike the member of Congress from Tennessee who thought that he just had to go along with Orange Jesus because maybe this is the last time we're going to have to prop Donald Trump up, Quayle knew and convinced Pence in the end that this is a moment where they needed to stand up as individuals to do what was right for the Constitution. And first of all, I love Pence thinking that referring to Trump as my friend in his personal notes is gonna throw us off the scent of who he was talking about. But you could see him struggling, playing out in his own mind how he's going to deal with this. He probably didn't imagine it was going to get as bad as it did. Right on January 6th, Pence didn't. I saw Mike Pence. I interviewed him a few weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. Talked to him privately afterwards. Don't know the man well. He was pretty candid about how he was feeling about things, how he's feeling about the Republican Party. So I'm projecting ahead to March when this trial, the Jan 6 trial, is going to start in D.C. I don't know, John, if Mike Pence is likely going to be a witness, but I think he seems to be feeling very aligned with the Constitution and not so much in line with where Republicans are in his party, including Trump.
To this point, it's not clear that he will be. He hasn't really cooperated that much with the special counsel, though we did hear from Chris Christie yesterday predicting that because Mark Meadows appears to be cooperating, that could spell real trouble for Donald Trump. But it does seem to be a newly liberated Mike Pence. But we should also note, what has that liberation got on him? He got crushed in the Republican primary, absolutely crushed. We mentioned Liz Cheney earlier today. She did the right thing too, like Mike Pence eventually did. What happened to her? She also got crushed in the Republican primary. So they did the right things for history, they did the right things for the Constitution, but not for their political present because of where the GOP is, a GOP that seems on track to be nominating Donald Trump again. And we should note, Joe and Mika, we've spent a lot of time this last week or two talking about the stakes of the upcoming election. Donald Trump is making them plain by the day. He posted in the overnight hours on Truth Social, again about MSNBC. He, of course, called us MSDNC, and threatened again to have the government crack down on a network's broadcasting license, saying our so-called government should come down hard on them and make them pay for their illegal political activity, which in his estimation is simply being critical of Donald Trump. And he writes, much more to come. Watch.
Much more to come. Watch. And, Jonathan, as we've been saying all along, perhaps Donald Trump's next term, if he is elected, perhaps it won't look like North Korea or communist China or Putin's Russia, leaders that he just adores. Maybe it looks more like Orban's Hungary. He has talked about Orban's Hungary or Erdogan's Turkey. But you look at what happened in Orban's Hungary, and you actually have an illiberal leader who brags about hating liberal democracy and brags about his country being illiberal. And what you do, Mika, is you do what Orban has done is he's chased off his critics in the media, and he's done it through regulation. He's done it through sham tax investigations. He's done all of these things, driven people out, not only out of the business, but out of the country. And he's done the same thing with political opponents, the same thing with reporters bugging their phones. It's again, this is not like some wild speculation.
Oh no, believe him.
Online. This is Donald Trump telling us exactly what he's going to do if he is elected next November. He is going to destroy American democracy. And he said it. He's promised us if it gets in his way, he'll terminate the Constitution. He's talked about how he's going to take entire news channels off the air if they're not supportive of him. You can go down the list of things he's talking about the execution of generals that are not sufficiently loyal to him. That's what Donald Trump is promising to do. That's not even what he's likely to do beyond that. That's what he's already promising us he's going to do.
Still ahead on Morning Joe, an exclusive look at what's driving the Latino vote ahead of the 2024 presidential election. NBC's Morgan Radford will join us to break down brand new polling. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Today, my friend, you did it, you did it, you did it. Centrum Silver is now clinically shown to support cognitive health in older adults. It's one more step towards taking charge of your health. So every day, you can say, Centrum Silver.
We're not writers, but we help you shape your financial story. We're not an airline, but our network connects global businesses across nearly 160 markets. We're not a startup, but our innovation labs use new technologies to help keep your information secure. We're not architects, but we help build stronger communities. We're not just any bank, we are Citi.
The Subway series is taking your favorite to the next level, like the number 20, the Elite Chicken and Bacon Ranch, built with rotisserie style chicken and double cheese.
I love what I'm seeing here. That's some well-coached chicken.
You done, Peyton? The Subway series just keeps getting better.
Kind of needs to be more squiggly. Perfect. So now, do you have a driver's license?
Oh, what did you get us?
With the click of a pen, you can get a new Volkswagen at the Sign Then Drive event. Hurry in to lease a new 2023 all-electric ID4 for 0 down, 0 deposit, 0 first month payment, and 0 due at signing. Limited inventory available.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
It starts with the sun. Sparking something so simple that makes it all move. High noon, high design. Movado, Swiss made since 1881.
That's a beautiful live picture of the White House at 7:23 in the morning. There's some new polling out just this morning showing the #1 issue for Latino voters heading into 2020 is inflation and the economy, like it is for so many voters. That's according to a new survey of more than 3,000 Latino voters taken earlier this month by Unidos US. NBC News correspondent and NBC News Now anchor Morgan Radford got an exclusive look at the early numbers and joins us now to walk through. Morgan, good morning. So what are we seeing?
Hey there, Willie. This is really interesting once you get down into the details, because first, this poll makes it very clear just how important jobs and the economy are to Latino voters. So you can see here, if you look at this graph, 54% of Latinos ranked inflation and the rising cost of living as their top 3 issues. That outranks things like healthcare, crime, even immigration. And when you ask sort of which party they believe would be best at actually addressing all of these top issues, more than a third of Latinos say that Democrats would be best at handling those issues. But interestingly, only 47% of voters approve of the job that President Joe Biden is doing currently in the White House, which is a 17% drop in approval if you look at that number just from last year. And then finally, this is really interesting, Willie, if the election were held today, a majority of Latino voters, 51% if you look at this graphic, they're leaning either towards voting for President Biden, will probably vote for President Biden, or are definitely voting for President Biden. And that's an 18-point lead in voter preference over former President Donald Trump. So what does all of this mean? We spoke to Latinos in key swing states, as well as the vice president of the Latino Vote Initiative for Unidos US. Take a listen. What are the issues you care about most?
For us, the biggest impact we see is the price of gas. Its fluctuation is crazy, and it's become a little bit unaffordable.
How do you feel like President Biden is handling the economy?
Well, I mean, I think we could see the inflation. There's a lot of people that complain about interest rates.
When the economy is not doing great, when you support small businesses, you help the local communities also. And I haven't seen that with Biden.
If you just had to list your top 3 issues, what would they be?
You know, gun violence, climate change, and abortion rights.
But the economy isn't sort of your #1 issue.
Well, not for me personally, because I think that I'm very focused on social issues.
You know, really neither one of them deserve my vote. I almost feel like I should go some other route. Maybe somebody else will come up.
Ultimately, Hispanic voters are sending a wake-up call to both parties. To Democrats, the good news is that Hispanics see a lot of alignment in terms of their values with Democratic positions. But here, it is important to note that Democrats need to do a better job connecting with these voters on economic issues, and that they cannot rest in their laurels.
Now, of course, it's always important to peel back the curtain in terms of how these polls are conducted. And this particular poll was commissioned by Unidos US, which is the largest Latino nonprofit advocacy organization here in the country. And it was conducted by the national firm BSP Research, which mainly focuses on Democratic polling. And the president and founding partner of BSP Research is Matt Barreto, who has previously worked for the Biden campaign back in 2020. Now, of course, all of this matters because 34.5 million Hispanic Americans will be eligible to vote in the 2024 election, meaning Latinos are still the fastest growing racial or ethnic voting bloc.
So interesting. And Morgan, the national numbers are fascinating, but really these races, as we talk about every day, are going to be decided in a few swing states. So what do the numbers look like there?
I'll tell you what's really interesting. They actually looked at 7 key states that were expected to play a big role in the 2024 election. And for a majority of Latino voters in 6 of those states, if you look there on the graph on your screen, Biden would be the candidate they're most likely voting for. And the only state where Biden falls behind Trump is in Florida, where just 39% of Latinos say they plan to support the current president's re-election. But if you look at comparison, our NBC News exit polls actually show Biden got 53% of Latino voters back in 2020. So it's kind of interesting to look at those hypothetical matchups there.
So Jen, let's look at these numbers from your old job inside a presidential campaign. How would you be feeling if you were the Biden campaign looking at some of this data where you see what we see nationally anyway among all groups, which is the economy is #1.
Right.
And also they're both kind of about both candidates.
Honestly, these numbers are better than I expected for Biden. You know, I did not expect the re-elect number to be as high as it is. It is not surprising that economy rises as the largest, as the most important issue, and immigration is further down. I think people misunderstand how Latino voters feel about immigration. You know, most like all Americans are mostly concerned about the economy. That's pretty far down on the list, and you know, he's got to prove to them that he can get things done. I do think healthcare popping as an issue this week is really important. That's a very big issue with Latino voters. Protecting Obamacare has been a way that Democrats have helped to corral support in the Hispanic community before. It's like a clear way to deal with costs, right? It's like protecting Obamacare and protecting healthcare costs. So the campaign's gonna have to continue to find issues like that where they can prove not just Trump's worse, but we've done something to make your life better. We've done something to actually lower costs.
So if you're sitting in the West Wing this morning, would you be encouraged looking at these numbers thinking, you know, okay, it's the end of November.
Yeah.
There's a year to go before next November when people actually vote. The economy is a given, and that it's an issue for everyone, Latinos, anybody in this country. The economy is an issue. But the bonus, I would think, if you're in the White House today, is just as you said. I thought would be more underwater.
Right. Right. I mean, Trump's let number being the 33%. That's pretty low. So that is encouraging, particularly since you've seen the Trump campaign put so much effort into winning over Hispanic voters. And, you know, so that piece of it is encouraging. World leaders have low approval ratings absolutely everywhere. You know, if you're in a democracy, you have Biden's approval rating is much higher than Macron's in France, than Sunak in the UK. You know, than the chancellor in Germany. So it is a difficult time to be a leader, but you're like, okay, this is a roadmap. We know what we need to address, what we can build on, and where we have credibility. The fact that these voters think that Democrats are better to deal with inflation, that is, you know, 35%. It's only, you know, it's not a majority, but still there's really good building blocks there.
And Morgan, the outlier here, Florida, not really a surprise, right? A state that is growing more and more red in recent cycles, and also where the Republicans' message of linking Democrats to socialism resonates with the particular Latino population that lives there.
Exactly, especially when we're looking at Cubans or Venezuelans. So it's also interesting there in Florida. If you look at that hypothetical matchup, Biden actually beats Trump by 18 points. But if Ron DeSantis were actually to be on the ballot tomorrow, he loses by about 28 points. So the delta is actually pretty different there. But I think, kind of to your point earlier, there's also a misunderstanding about who Latino voters are, right? There's this assumption that this close tie, for example, with Catholicism would make them not want to protect certain abortion rights. But if you look at polling there, 70% of Latino voters want to protect abortion rights. Then if you look at things like climate change, that actually ranked number 12 on this list. And only 6% of Latinos are climate change deniers compared to 27% of the general population when you look at Pew Research. So there's some interesting smaller nuggets in there when you talk about messaging and speaking to this particular population.
It's all so interesting and so critical to what's going to happen a year from now. NBC's Morgan Radford, as she always does, bringing us great information. Morgan, thanks so much. Coming up next, some alarming new reporting on the algorithm used by Instagram and its impact on children. Wall Street Journal technology reporter Jeff Horwitz joins us with that, and revelations from his new book on Facebook's parent company, Meta. Morning Joe's coming right back.
Hard to wrap, easy to give. Right now, save $40 on the HSA 45 battery hedge trimmer. Find something for everyone on your list. Find yours at SteelDealers.com.
Hair has always been central to my identity.
Once I started taking Nutrafol, I could see my hair get thicker. It's also made my hair stronger.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement. Start your hair growth journey at Nutrafol.com.
When my doctor gave me Breztri for my COPD,
Things changed for me. Breztri gave me better breathing, symptom improvement, and reduced flare-ups.
Breztri won't replace a rescue inhaler for sudden breathing problems. It is not for asthma. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure before taking it. Don't take Breztri more than prescribed. Breztri may increase your risk of thrush, pneumonia, and osteoporosis. Call your doctor if worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain occur.
Ask your doctor about Breztri.
The walking tree is said to change its entire location in pursuit of sunlight. Where could reinvention take your business? Accenture. Let there be change.
Hi, my name is Damian Clark. If you have both Medicare and Medicaid, I have some really encouraging news that you'll definitely want to hear. Depending on the plans available in your area, you may be eligible to get extra benefits with the Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. All these plans include a Healthy Options allowance, a monthly allowance to help pay for eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and over-the-counter items. The Healthy Options allowance is loaded onto a prepaid card each month, and whatever you don't spend carries over from each month. Other benefits on these plans include free rides to and from your medical appointments, and our large networks of doctors, hospitals, and pharmacies. So call the number on your screen now and ask about a Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. Humana, a more human way to healthcare.
You are invited to spend Christmas in the country at Talon Falls. Your family and friends will love the sights and sounds of the season. Take the Talon Falls Express through thousands of dazzling Christmas lights and displays on your way to the North Pole. Lots of outdoor activities too. Take the Penguin Plunge. Hang out with your favorite holiday characters. Christmas at Talon Falls has it all. Start a new family holiday tradition at Talon Falls. For more information, visit TalonFallsChristmas.com.
Welcome to the biggest auto protection show on earth, brought to you by CarShield. I'm your host, Chris Berman. If your car is out of warranty or close to expiring, CarShield makes sure you don't have to pay for expensive auto repair. That's why I'm a customer. Let's catch up with the action. We're happy customers that save thousands on car repairs. The first 3 months, we saved $4,100.
CarShield saved me over $6,000 in engine repairs. It's like having a suit of armor around my car.
They put a transmission in it and a motor. Who does that?
An engine, transmission, or computer system breakdown could cost you thousands of dollars. But with CarShield, you'll never pay on covered repairs.
Don't get stuck paying for those expensive repairs. Call CarShield and tell them the Swami sent you. CarShield cars go farther.
Call now for a free and instant protection plan quote. Call 800-839-3892, 800-839-3892.
"37 past the hour, some headlines now. At least one person is dead after a U.S. military aircraft crashed near an island off the coast of southern Japan earlier this morning. The U.S. Coast Guard confirms that 6 people were on board the aircraft and 1 man was recovered from the sea. That man was later confirmed dead at a local hospital. The Coast Guard has not provided any more details regarding the status of the aircraft or anyone else on board. Family and friends honored the life and legacy of former First Lady Rosalynn Carter in a tribute service in Atlanta, Georgia yesterday. There you see former First Ladies Melania Trump, Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Laura Bush in attendance, followed by former President Bill Clinton, President Biden, and Dr. Jill Biden. Former President Jimmy Carter, who is 99, made a rare appearance while covered in a blue and white blanket, sitting in a wheelchair, the blanket embroidered with a smiling portrait of his wife. Carter did not address the mourners during the service. The couple's son, Chip, eulogized Mrs. Carter, and their daughter, Amy, read a moving love letter the former president wrote to his wife 75 years ago.
My darling, every time I have ever been away from you, I have been thrilled when I returned to discover just how wonderful you are. While I'm away, I try to convince myself that you really are not, could not be as sweet and beautiful as I remember. But when I see you, I fall in love with you all over again. Does that seem strange to you? It doesn't to me. Goodbye, darling. Until tomorrow. Jimmy.
Mrs. Carter is remembered by many for her humanitarian work and as a mental health advocate making history. Her advocacy transformed the role of the First Lady. She was incredibly impactful and beautiful. She was 96 years old. To other news now. Convicted murderer Alec Murdaugh was in the courtroom again yesterday in South Carolina, where he was sentenced to 27 years for stealing millions from his clients. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has the latest.
You lied, you cheated, you stole, you betrayed me.
This morning, former prominent South Carolina lawyer and convicted murderer Alec Murdaugh back in court, confronted by distraught victims of his state financial crimes.
I've been waiting on this day to look in your eyes. What kind of animal are you?
Among the victims, the family of Murdaugh's former housekeeper, who died after falling at the Murdaugh home. Prosecutors say Murdaugh directed millions of dollars from her life insurance claim to an account he used, while the family received nothing.
I just don't understand. Did you not have a soul?
Murdaugh, who is accused of swindling millions from his clients for over a decade, sat quietly listening before addressing the victims himself.
And I am so sorry. So sorry for the things that I did.
The judge then sentencing Murdaugh to 27 years in prison as part of a deal that required Murdaugh plead guilty to 22 state financial crimes.
Guilty verdict.
In March, Murdaugh was convicted of murdering his wife and son and is currently serving 2 life sentences. He's also pled guilty to almost 24 federal financial crimes, which requires he pay nearly $9 million in restitution. One of Murdaugh's victims is Pamela Pinkney, who told Craig on Dateline that Murdaugh defrauded her twice while representing her after a car crash that left her teenage son paralyzed.
You trusted him?
Yes, I trusted him wholeheartedly.
Pinkney estimates Murdaugh and his alleged co-conspirators pocketed $1 million owed to her family. In court on Tuesday, she told Murdaugh she forgives him.
You just took us for granted. But all I want to say to you is I forgive you from my heart.
Still, Murdaugh resolute he did not kill his wife and son.
You are dead wrong about one thing, and I would never hurt Maggie, and I would never hurt Paul.
NBC's Liz Kreutz with that report, and we'll be following that. Still ahead, live reporting from Tel Aviv for the latest in the Israel-Hamas war as more hostages are set to be released from captivity. Plus, Democratic members of the Oversight Committee, Congressman Dan Goldman and Jared Moskowitz will be our guests this morning. And we'll talk about, among other things, Hunter Biden, who has a new legal plan as he takes on his adversaries. Betsy Woodruff Swan and Eugene Daniels will join us with their new reporting on how Hunter's counteroffensive will play out in courtrooms just as President Biden ramps up his re-election campaign. Morning Joe will be right back.
Hi, my name is Peg. I'm a wife, mother, and grandmother. I love being with family. We have so much fun doing things together, and that is really the priority of my life. Family is so important to me, and I want to stay healthy so that I can continue to do the things that I enjoy doing with all of them. I try and exercise and eat well, and balance of nature just helps me to put it all together and take me over the top. I really am happy that I came across it, and I've been taking it for probably 5 years, and I will continue to take it. I would recommend Balance of Nature. It's so easy to do every day. I feel great, and who doesn't want to feel great?
Happy holidays. Go to balanceofnature.com and get 35% off with free shipping and our money back guarantee with your first order as a preferred customer by using discount code LOVE.
And Doug.
And Doug says you can customize and save hundreds on car insurance with Liberty Mutual. He hits his mark center stage and is crushed by a baby grand piano. Are you replacing me? With this guy?
Customize and save with Liberty Bibbity.
He doesn't even have a mustache.
Oh, look at Bee-Boo.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
At Bombas, we make the comfiest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that feel good and most of all, do good. Because when you purchase one, we donate one to those in need. Visit bombas.com and get 20% off your first purchase. Bombas, give the good.
I have an announcement. I'm giving up smoke. I know what you're thinking. Snoop, smoke is kind of your whole thing. But I'm done with it. Done with the coughing and my clothes smelling all sticky icky. I'm going smokeless. Solo Stove Fix Fire. They take out the smoke. Clever.
Hi, my name's Steve. I lost 138 pounds on Golo, and I kept it off. So with other diets, you just feel like you're muscling your way through it. The reason why I like Golo is plain and simple, it was easy. I didn't have to grit my teeth and do a diet. Golo is a lifestyle change, and you make the change, and it stays off. Golo has changed my life in so many ways. I sleep better. I eat better. Took my shirt off in the first time in 25 years. It's Golo. It's all Golo. It's smarter. It's better. It will change your life forever.
Support St. Jude, and you're helping kids with cancer grow up and be whatever they want to be, like Mary Browder. Man, I need lessons from her.
Give thanks for the healthy kids in your life and give a gift that could last a lifetime.
You are invited to spend Christmas in the country at Talon Falls. Your family and friends will love the sights and sounds of the season. Take the Talon Falls Express through thousands of dazzling Christmas lights and displays on your way to the North Pole. Lots of outdoor activities too. Take the Penguin Plunge. Hang out with your favorite holiday characters. Christmas at Talon Falls has it all. Start a new family holiday tradition at Talon Falls. For more information, visit TalonFallsChristmas.com.
Now, more than ever, all U.S. veterans need your help. If you have an old car, truck, or van, you can donate it today and help them. And they'll come pick it up for free. Plus, the money raised helps our nation's disabled veterans and their families. Call the number on your screen right now. Within a few days, we'll come and tow it away for free, running or not. And the proceeds greatly help U.S. veterans. So please call right now.
Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy. The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people.
That is former Facebook product manager turned whistleblower Frances Haugen testifying before the Senate a couple of years ago about the harmful effects of that social media site. Her decision to speak out came after she smuggled more than 20,000 internal documents out of the company, which were then published as part of a Wall Street Journal investigation. Joining us now, technology reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Jeff Horwitz. He helped to uncover Facebook's negligence and writes about his findings in a new book called Broken Code: Inside Facebook and the Fight to Expose Its Harmful Secrets. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us. Let's start with the algorithm, which you get at in this book, which you say is harmful. It drives kids to places that can be harmful to themselves. Is this by design from the point of view of Meta?
Yes, the harm not so much, but the conditions that lead to the harm, absolutely. Right. The whole goal here of the product is to personalize. This is the core of their system. And the idea is that whatever results in greater engagement, the company is generally going to push, and they're going to push it hard. And so if that is something that is going to exacerbate vulnerabilities that a person has about their own, say, self-image, that's going to be an issue. If that is something that is illegal or really unfortunate, such as conspiracy theories or things that treat children as sexual objects, the algorithm is going to very happily do that, right? This is a functionally amoral but very efficient system. The only question is what restrictions get put on it.
So, Jeff, I guess the question is, Meta would say our algorithm pushes people to things they're telling us they like, and that maybe that ends up in a bad place for them personally. But the statement from Meta we should read here: we have every incentive to help ensure people using our services have a positive experience. It's what advertisers want. It's what keeps people coming back to our apps. It says this book forgoes nuance, ignores inconvenient facts, and the result is a one-sided and misleading portrait of Meta and the work we do. That's from a statement from Meta. So I guess I'll let you respond to that first, but also just the idea that they're just driving people where they say they want to go.
Yeah, it's that statement. That's a new one. Look, I mean, Meta's long-standing position has been that bad things happen off the internet and they happen on the internet too, and therefore they're going to happen on Meta's platforms. And to some degree, that's absolutely true, right? That there will be issues that are, just people are sometimes bad, and therefore they're sometimes bad on Facebook and Instagram. But I think the thing that the company has long tried to avoid discussing is how the decisions it makes about its products shape the way that human beings act when they're using its services. So, the question of, can you, send out 400,000 invites to a QAnon group, as one user did to the chagrin of Facebook's safety staff, is one question. Another one is the algorithm persistently recommending things that are more likely to violate your own company's standards for content quality than what people post? And so I think what the companies could have tried to do is just sort of have this be a debate about humanity, when in fact it is a debate. It should be a discussion about product design and what the company values. And it's something that's very clear from having gone through the company's internal records, is that the company really does anything that would damage growth, like even by as little as, say, 0.1%, is just off the table. So, what happens is they built this system that basically will do whatever is best for the company's own numbers, but doesn't leave much room for anything other than the most remedial safety work after the fact.
So Jeff, Jonathan Lemire, good to see you. Let's dive into some of the revelations in your book. Obviously, Facebook/Meta came under extraordinary scrutiny after the 2016 elections, and you talk about how they designed a civic team, which was meant to correct some of the wrongs that happened there, promote social media as a force for good. But tell us what happened instead.
Yeah, there were a couple of years when the company really did earnestly invest in trying to understand what was going wrong and why its platform was producing outcomes that just didn't seem like reasonable. Why things like QAnon or Pizzagate were doing so fantastically well. Why it seemed like the most radical and sort of firebrand type discourse on both sides was really taking off, and how it was getting manipulated. And that was really interesting work. The problem is that work did demonstrate that what the platform was optimizing for wasn't necessarily what anyone would want to see. To quote extremely high level, this is Guy Rosen, the company's company's current chief security officer, some of its algorithms were really best designed for cat videos, not for determining what should rise in civic discourse. And so what the company found was that they were actually making political discourse worldwide more extreme. They have functionally internally acknowledged that at this point and sort of tried to move away from ranking content. Cat videos are now treated a little differently than, say, political news. But that said, they kind of just never accepted this stuff. And I think that, obviously this goes all the way to the top in terms of leadership. One thing in the book is that Mark Zuckerberg personally told the civic team to stand down ahead of, right after the 2020 election, basically told them not to do any more work tracking election delegitimization. And obviously, they rolled back all the defenses they had, stopped the Steele stuff, and 2 months later, we have January 6th.
So, Jeff, listening to this conversation this morning and looking at some notes about your book, my question is a simple one. Is Facebook a clear and present danger to us?
I think I would say that we're a couple decades into the world of social media, and it seems like right now there has not been a tremendous amount of work done to make these products something that would be societally useful, even though they are as powerful as any form of broadcast media or communication that's ever been invented. And I think that is a pretty dangerous place right now. The company sort of generally does not take responsibility for bad outcomes from its products, and basically just says, "No, that's humanity. We do the best we can," and has in fact in recent years been cutting staff related to safety work, whether that's going to be trying to safeguard elections, such as disbanding the SIG team, or whether that is going to be things related to teen mental health or going after networks of predators on the platform. I think the company it really likes to build things and move on, right? The move fast and break thing ethos is still very real. And while they really like designing new products and building things that grow and are popular, they do not much like governing them.
So, Jeff, as we look at what Facebook, Meta, Instagram has done in reaction to your reporting, the Wall Street Journal outstanding reporting, the whistleblower testimony of Frances Haugen to sort of step up in its security, are there new things in place? Are they looking at new ways to keep, particularly let's talk about teenage girls, safe on Instagram? Because we know, and they know, as we learned in your reporting and from whistleblower testimony, that it is dangerous, particularly for teenage girls, for young people.
This is something that's come out just really in the last couple of months from the state attorneys general lawsuit against Meta. And I think, which is I was kind of shocked myself to see how much very senior members of Meta's leadership team seem to acknowledge that the product was in fact harmful in a number of ways, right? That it was not well designed for young teenagers. It was just a bad, Instagram, for example, you have Instagram's former head of policy saying that, this was just simply not built in a way that was appropriate for young teens. You have an acknowledgement that the product steers people toward rabbit holes into things that sort of touch on their own vulnerabilities. So that's kind of the body image type concern. And that as the company was externally denying that this stuff was real, was calling it all overblown and cherry picked, they did seem to internally acknowledge it, which I suppose it's in a certain way a good thing. So they have not really fundamentally dealt with design issues. I think they try to view everything as just kind of a question of, we should, maybe do a little more moderation here and there, as opposed to, we built something that might be unsafe, even though that's what the company's safety team and internal employees, engineers, data scientists have been telling them for years.
There's so much more inside the book. It's called Broken Code Inside Facebook and the Fight to Expose Its Harmful Secrets. The Wall Street Journal's Jeff Horwitz. Jeff, congrats on the book, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, talks are underway right now to again extend the temporary truce between Israel and Hamas. We'll have a live report from Tel Aviv when we come right back.